The character of Static's creation began with Milestone Comics founder Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cohen, Michael Davis, and Derek T. Diggle. Milestone Comics in itself was a company built on a greater representation of minority heroes.
Basically, it was a bunch of guys who liked comics, who had had a certain level of success in the mainstream, and wanted to take some of that and kind of make our own projects.
Originally from Marvel Comics, Static, aka Virgil P. Hawkins, would become a staple for the company and often compared to Spider-Man for his teenage-like aura. Voice actor for Static would call Static the Black Spider-Man. Han, at this point, was known for pushing good ideas at DC since the 70s. She was the one responsible for DC's original name, National Periodical, to be changed to DC, and the company's bulletproof logo in 1977. Skip forward to 1993, Khan oversaw the launch of Vertical Imprint and Milestone Comics, plus the Death of Superman storyline. Khan proposed to adapt some of the Milestone characters, hiring producer Alan Burnett to write a pilot episode for the show called The New Guard, an X-Men-esque type show, but it didn't get off the ground. Dwayne McDuffie, he would have some input on the show, barely to little at points, but he was hired on for show editor and writer. But he did stress that the show must command the spirit and tone of the comic book. Plus, there was a push to make the show a kid show, of course, so there will be less guns and less other things used that were used in the comic book. There will be changes that were made, including Virgil was younger compared to his comic book counterpart. His mom had passed away. She was alive in the comics. His powers would be a little bit different, and the show will promote a stronger African-American father and son relationship. For the voices of the show for Static, WarnerBros will hire comedian and voice actor Phil Lamar, who will also voice Jon Stewart's Green Lantern for the Justice League animated shows. Rounding out the cast, Jason Marsden as Virgil best friend Richie, and Kevin Michael Richardson as Robert Hawkins, Virgil's father. For production, the show would use some of the sort of the same animation as the Batman animated series and the Superman animated series, and producer Alan Burnett and Scott Giles would work on the show as they worked on the previous shows. Static Shock will air on Kids WB beginning on September 23rd, 2000 until May 22nd, 2004, running for 52 episodes with 4 seasons. The show would cover different amounts of issues, including gangs, gun violence, homelessness, bullying, racism, and drugs. Some wondered if the show was in the same universe as Superman in the Batman animated series, but it was. In Season 1, we discover how Virgil became Static after an explosion and dealing with other victims of the said explosion. In Season 2, Static teams up with Batman and Robin to stop the Joker in Static City, Dakota. In Season 3, Static travels to Gotham to team up with Batman again, as well as Superman. Static would help the Justice League take on Brainiac, as well as meet up with his idol, the Green Lantern. Also in Season 3, an episode would air. It would have its own take of the LA riots. Instead of LA, it would be Dakota, and Static will have to face his past due to these riots. Season 4, Static meets Batman Beyond, teams up with NBA players Steve Nash, Yao Ming, Karl Malone, and Tracy McGrady, plus another episode with Jon Stewart, aka the Green Lantern. In the last episode, everyone who was affected by the explosion would lose their powers and go back to normal, but there was a group of villains who, let's just say, wanted their powers, so it's up to Static and his friend Richie to stop them. But it wasn't the end for Static Shock in the DCAU. An older version of himself would appear in the Justice League Unlimited episodes, the Once in the Future Thing Part 1 and Part 2, helping Batman and Green Lantern and Wonder Woman. For the show's legacy, it will receive high praise for much of its run, and pretty much until this day. People love the show until this day. It won Daytime Emmy Awards as well as Annie Awards, plus a comic book run based on the show itself. In the end, Dwayne McDuffie did write for some of the episodes in some of the series. Due to the success of the TV show and his work, McDuffie would find himself as a writer and producer for the DCAU shows Justice League Unlimited, plus Teen Titans, and Ben 10 Alien Force, and not only the TV shows but also the animated films such as All-Star Superman. McDuffie will become responsible for the push of characters such as Jon Stewart, Vixen, Mr. Terrific, and Steel. Many praise Duffy for diversifying these characters and putting much detailed writing, something that most DC writers and employees said really wasn't around since the 70s, which is hard to believe. But thanks to McDuffie, these characters, these African American superheroes, become more even popular than they was before. But as far as Static Shock in the future, who knows what we'll get from him. He really hasn't been used since the early 2000s, even though yet he was in a couple of episodes of Young Justice. But as far as live action wise, we do not know. We do not know. But I'll give all credit to Milestone Comics for putting forth a good product and making sure that it was more about the story than just identity politics.